for president before it was cool. From her she shed in her beautiful backyard, this is the Michelle Moore Show.
Hello, everyone. So glad you're with us today. If you don't recognize me, yes, I am Michelle Moore. I'm straight back from the beach and I have not straightened my hair. And I told producer Ron, I said, I'm afraid it's not going to all fit in the frame. Anyways, what do you know? It's just big hair. All right. So let's talk about a few viewer comments before we get to today's guest. I'm very excited. Let's see. So we heard from S. Grez, and she says, I like Scott singing to the Lord. I do too. He did a very good job. In fact, I got chills when he sang a couple of weeks ago. That was great. That was a great little treat. His voice, I don't know if you remember or if you know, but he's been having a problem with the coughing and stuff. And so he's been trying to get his cough cured up, and so that way he can sing some more. So, but I did send your comment to him. I texted it to him today. All right, and then Pammy K 1956 said, will Gretchen be back on anytime soon? I have a question for her. If we hold the Zim special Argo checks, how will we know how to redeem when the time comes? Thanks. Well, I'm actually leaving here to go and have dinner with Gretchen. She's in town visiting family. So I'm going to be having dinner with her, and she is going to be on the show tomorrow. So we have got her booked with Warren. It's Wednesday, so we know Warren's going to be on, but she's going to be on. And Pammy K, I'll have this question answered for you tomorrow, sweetheart. And so I think that's the only I think we're only doing 2 viewer questions. Yeah. So I know at one point we were talking about 3, and I said, let's just do 2. I'm very excited. So it turns out our next guest has quite the following. Her name is Nicole Umberger. I want to make sure I say her name right. Nicole Umberger. And so Nicole has been fighting with CPS, been on this journey for her son. And so we're going to find out all different kinds of information. And so I'm very excited. And so we're going to go on ahead and bring her on. And so she is a mama and a CPS corruption fighter. Hello, Nicole. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Michelle?
Well, thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you for being on today, honey. I'm very excited that you're on. I reached out to you, said I'm very interested in this. I heard CPS was involved. So first and foremost, I want to remind everybody that as you hear Nicole's story and as the show goes on, if you have any questions and you're watching live, you can post those on our Rumble channel, which is the Michelle Moore Show's Rumble channel, in either the chat or the comments. And you can do the same thing on PPN's Rumble channel. So in the chat or the comments, or on PPN's website, patriotpartynews.com. So, okay. Before we get started, I want to again say thank you to Nurse Christy. And so Nurse Christy said, I think this is somebody you should take a look at. This is more like something you would have on your show, a topic, and this woman might be a perfect guest for you. And so she sent me a TikTok video that you did. And so I want to share the TikTok video with everyone, and then we'll start the interview. Okay, so here we go.
14 years ago, the Department of Child Services in Anderson County, Tennessee, fraudulently obtained a TPR to take my child away. They did this by lying to me and the child's father and telling us that we couldn't visit him for 4 months in a row because he was sick. We found out that it was because the people who were taking care of him were splitting up due to one of them having an affair and having a child. So they didn't want me to find out about the child. They told me in court that I couldn't mention anything about it. My attorney was also conspiring with DCS so he could become juvenile court judge, and he is juvenile court judge of Anderson County, the Honorable Brian J. Hunt. My caseworker at that time, Katie Dossett Butler, lied. We were her first case, and she lied. So when we went to court, she also coerced me into lying under oath. She said, you can't bring up anything that's happened. You can't bring up anything about the baby. You can't bring up anything about not seeing him for 4 months, because they were going to terminate my parental rights based upon a failure to visit. In the state of Tennessee, if you don't see your child for 4 months, it's considered abandonment. So they lied and conspired to take my child away. They wanted to get an incentive bonus. It was her first case and she wanted to get an incentive bonus. So instead of doing the right thing, she put the blinders up and played along with the schemes and the scams. It was her very first case and she lied in court. My son was never adopted, and I felt that he was looking for me a few years ago, and then he found me. He told me that he was never adopted and that his life has been hell. I wrote legislators trying to get my son after he made many reports along with other people about the abuse he was enduring in the home of him and his guardian. We finally got him taken out of the home, but only because he ran away from home after being abused. They charged him with running away and put him away in a group home where he's been for the past year. I wrote legislators in Tennessee and told them this story. And all of a sudden, they started an ICPC process with me last September. So I just went through the home study and we've passed. We're waiting now for that to be put together and given to the ICPC division here so they can decide whether or not to approve it and then send it to Tennessee, and then Tennessee will approve it, and then Joshua will come home. He could be home by Mother's Day. So I really appreciate all the support, and I just want to say, don't give up on your children. And if you have spiraled out of control because of what happened to you, because of the corruption, get on your feet as fast as you can. And let me help you get your children. I can guide you to the resources that will help you win.
Okay, so Nicole, wow. First and foremost, I want to say, I don't know how. I mean, I was just saying to somebody this morning, one day away from my children would drive me crazy, much less I don't know how in the world you've done it. So it's just too much for my mind to get wrapped around. So the first thing is in your TikTok, you share that, there was some separation. How did CPS, under what terms or reasons did CPS take the baby out of the home in the first place?
So we lived in a neighborhood that wasn't that great, but our apartment was super cute, super cheap, and it was good for us. We had a person in the neighborhood that we found out was selling drugs to small children. Us and a few other parents heard about it. So police were called. The person went to jail, yada, yada, yada. Well, the person gets out of jail, and the next thing I know, I'm outside checking my mail. I laid Joshua down for a nap. He was 13 months old. And I'm out there checking my mail. I also use my neighbor's phone that's right next to me. And a cop pulls up and tells me that they heard there was a baby left alone. I said, yeah, he's in the house taking a nap in his bed. So they refused to come in the house and see him. They wanted me to bring him out. And so I did. I had to change him first. I changed his diaper because I didn't just come right out after I laid him down. I wanted to make sure he was good and asleep. So he'd been asleep for a good half hour. And I changed his diaper, and I looked downstairs to my front door, and I could see in the reflection of the window on the door, the cop was looking at me. I said, you don't have to spy. You can come in. But he wouldn't come in. He would not investigate the accusation. That's the way I feel. So I brought my child out, and one of my neighbors said, can I hold the baby? And when I gave her the baby, the cop arrested me. And I sat in a jail cell on lockdown, meaning I was not allowed out around anybody. I was in a cell by myself 23 hours a day, 24 hours a day, except to get out and shower. And they only called me out to shower at 2 a.m. So for 2 weeks, I sat there. And when I went to court, the judge asked the caseworker, why is she just now appearing in front of me? She's been in jail for 2 weeks. And the caseworker said, oh, I just forgot. She was like, you pass by this jail on the way to work every day, because the jail's right by DCS. And she was like, and you just conveniently forgot. And from what I understand, that caseworker did get fired. That's how we got the next caseworker. But that's what happened. And
what do you think happened there? Nicole, do you think that was just an innocent thing, or do you think something else was going on there?
I don't think that she conveniently forgot. I think that she did that on purpose. I really do.
Why? But why?
Who knows? I have no
Okay.
idea. I mean, I think it could be to prolong the separation between my child and I, and make it to where I can't hurry up and get legal counsel or do anything, put me somewhere where I couldn't work to get my child to hold me
Okay.
back.
Okay. Because I'm wondering, even from that early on, was there something going on to conspiring to get, a hold of the child? So that's what I'm trying to get to, is understand, what's going on there. So then you finally come before the judge. Is this the judge that you talk about, Brian J. Hunt? Is this the judge, or is this a different
No.
judge?
Brian J. Hunt is the current Anderson County Juvenile Court judge. He was not the judge at that time. He was my public defender
Oh,
that was
okay.
running for juvenile court judge.
Okay.
But the judge there was April Brown, I believe, and she was great. She would have given me my child back. She would have. Whenever she released me that day that I went before her, she said, "And good luck. I hope you get your child back." Those were her exact
wow.
words. But I didn't have her.
Okay.
She retired, and I had some other judge. I can't even remember his name, honestly.
So she retired shortly after you saw her? It must have been very shortly after. Okay. So I don't know how the process works, Nicole. So you go
Yeah.
before the judge and you're allowed to be out of jail after 2 weeks of sitting there. And so what's the process of getting your child back? What is going on there? So you come home.
Well, when I went home, my home was unlocked. The police decided to go through my house after they arrested me. So I gave them permission to come in while I was there. I didn't tell them they could go in my house without me there. They ransacked my apartment. They put my face in the paper. So when I came to my apartment, I had an eviction notice on the door. I had to leave my apartment, and I went and stayed with my ex-husband. At the time, he was my husband, my ex-husband's cousin. And I wanted to get out of Tennessee. I said, we will go stay with my mom and we will fight from there, because I don't trust this state. Like, I just wanted out. And then I found out shortly after that I was pregnant again. So I really wanted to get out of the state of Tennessee to protect that child. I have a condition called cervicalgia. And there's two types. The type I have affects the brain and the eyesight. And what happens is my cervical joints on my brainstem contract and contract and contract, and they don't let go, and it causes cluster migraines, nausea. It's a debilitating condition, let me tell you. So I was on opiates at the time. They were giving me Percocet for that. And I was even on it when I was pregnant with Joshua, because it's just that bad. It's that bad. It's terrible. I've had it since I was a teenager. So with that, they found out that I was on Percocet, and they called my doctor and told my doctor that I was in jail for child neglect. So that got my medication cut off. I had to find a new provider. And when I went to South Carolina, I did find a provider that treated me while I was pregnant. But they twisted everything around like I was some drug addict and I deserved to lose my child. At that time, I wasn't abusing drugs. I was taking my medicine as I should. It wasn't until, after my rights were fraudulently terminated, that's when I spiraled. That's when I became a junkie. And I wanted to die because I felt like I'm a failure. There's something wrong with me. I'm doing everything they've told me to do, and I didn't get him back. And it was a very, very sad time for me.
Okay, so I'm going to go back. So when you got out of jail, so when you got out of jail, you come home and the place is unlocked. Where was your husband? You were married at the time, so where was he?
He took off because he took off, and I don't know what it was about my ex-husband, but he would always side with his family when something like that. That's the first time something like that's ever happened, but he went and sided with his family, and they just talked about me. And then whenever I got out of jail, I was like, I don't know why you're turning on me, because this is both our kid and they're not going to give him to you. They're just not. You're not going to be able to get custody. And he didn't get custody. So then, he had no choice but to act right. But I did stay with a cousin of his, and then shortly after that, my mom took us at her place. So
Okay.
they
So you're
pretty much told me from the beginning that I was not getting my child back.
the court system?
No, the DCS caseworker.
Okay. All right. So at what point you get out of jail and you come home, you find your place is unlocked, your husband is not there. Okay.
Mhm.
At this point, when do you see a caseworker?
I didn't see a caseworker probably until about a week later. About a week later, I think, is when we made an appointment to speak with her. And it was her very first case. And so she was very new, and she seemed to be like she wanted us to get my child back. But according to her, her supervisor said that it was very unlikely. And I'm like, for what reason? You haven't even investigated the accusations. What, because I was outside checking my mail? I mean, there's no crime against that. The child was not in danger. I know people
Yeah.
that mow their lawn while their kids take naps. It's not
Sure.
a problem. So, and she just was more like passive, like, oh, I don't know. I'll have to ask about those things. And I found out she was the daughter of the Oak Ridge serial killer, Raynella Leith. That's her mother. And her mother is currently walking free in the state of Tennessee because of a mistrial. So that's connected. And anyway,
Yeah.
but that's her.
So you talk with her, you find out this information. How long is it before? And so this is during this time. How much longer before you go before a judge? Is that at the 4-month mark?
We went before a judge, I think about 2 months later, and we did set up visits, and we did have visitation. It was only for a couple hours a week. When we went before the judge, and I'm very sorry because my memory is very foggy from court dates and things of that nature because they were very traumatic for me. I truly feel that I've suppressed a lot of that.
Sure.
But from what I remember, the judge never seemed to be against anything. He went with whatever DCS suggested very easily. But I do not feel that he cared if we got our child back. I wish I could remember his name. I'll have to look on my paperwork. But it was just very odd. I was assigned Brian Hunt from Hunt & Hunt Law Firm as my public defender. And I tried calling before we went to court. Never got a hold of him. So when we spoke in court, it was very briefly. They never made any time for us to sit and talk about our case. We even offered to pay him money, and he just didn't even care. It just didn't matter. And then I heard he was running for juvenile court judge. And I wasn't aware of CPS corruption at that time. I had no idea about it. I truly was questioning whether or not I was a good person at this point. Like, I really was.
Sure.
They had me questioning my own self. Like, oh, I left him by himself while I checked the mail and used the neighbor's phone. Should I have more children? Like it really will have you questioning yourself. So, when all that took place, like I said, the judge seemed to be on board with whatever they suggested. Whenever we moved back to South Carolina, we asked them to do an ICPC, which is an interstate case transfer, where they safely transfer the child to another state to be placed with a relative. They refused to do it, and they gave no reason as to why. I think it's because there's no money in it. With an ICPC, they would be transferring everything to another state. So that state would get fiscal year funding, incentive bonuses, all that. You know what I mean? So they wouldn't do that. So we literally had to fight from across state lines. They wouldn't even call DSS and have them supervise my home and see if my home was, safe. They just didn't do anything to help us. They had us going to classes, drug classes, because I had a prescription for Percocet. And I was labeled a drug addict because I had a prescription for Percocet. And the thing is, in the past, I was 14 and I was prescribed lots of narcotics for this condition. And yes, I did develop a problem. But by this time, 2006, I got it together. And then I had my son in 2007 and just continued to do good from there until this crap happened. But, I was labeled that. And anyway, so, we tried to fight from across state lines, and it was just madness. And we were going to visits, and I'm pregnant with another child, and they're telling me, because they told me, if you have another baby right now, we will take that baby too, so it was just madness. It was very stressful. We
How
went to
did
these
you
classes
keep the baby? So how did you end up keeping the baby, the second baby?
because I had him in South Carolina.
Okay,
South
that's what I was
Carolina.
thinking.
They can't
Mhm.
they can't touch it. But they had us going to classes, paying $25 a pop for these classes. The classes taught us nothing. The guy was rude. It was a waste of our time. It really was more stressful than helpful. And they're a for-profit organization. They have these other parties that come in and they send you to, and they're all just contracted to conspire together, it seems.
Okay, so one of the things that's somewhat still new to me, I learned in the last few years, is that CPS is not part of the government. It's actually a third party entity. In
Yes,
your
and
experience,
yes.
is that what you have come to understand as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whenever I found out what they did, like, I was trying to understand, how can somebody who works for the government do this? And then I found out they don't even work for the government. They
Yeah.
don't even work for the government. So, and people think you can't sue them either, but you can. You just have to go through federal court. That's how you do it
Yeah.
successfully.
Okay. The other part is that means then that they are a for-profit organization. So
Yes.
this is really the foundation of what you're talking about, Nicole, is that
Yes.
they're not part of the government. We're all led to believe. I mean, they don't advertise this information.
Exactly.
So we're
Right.
all led to believe they are part of the government and that they're not, we would never think that they're doing this for a profit. And so those were two things that were shocking to me when I learned them about 3.5 years ago. So were you shocked to learn this information?
Yes, but when I learned it, that's when everything started coming together, because, what happened to us was all of a sudden our visits got hindered. We were driving 8 hours to go visit, and we'd get there and be told he was sick. Done drove 8 hours, wasted time, gas, money. So we'd
Sure.
have to go back. This happened over 4 months. It happened 4 times. And I was wondering to myself, why would they want to do that? And I found out the foster mom had an affair and got pregnant by another man. And during that 4 months, it was her last trimester, and she had the baby. By the time I found out, the baby was 6 weeks old. And so when we went back to court for the next hearing, I was told by my caseworker, you can't bring up the baby, you can't bring up the affair, and you can't bring up the visits. I go straight to my attorney and tell him, and he just nods. He doesn't say anything. I was livid. I had to leave the courtroom, like in the middle of the whole thing. I had to leave and go to the bathroom, and I thought I was going to have an anxiety attack. It was terrible. Felt like my heart was going to beat out of my chest. And I mean,
Sure.
I was really freaking out. I was really freaking out because I was like, is everybody against me? And I found out this is the whole deal. So they don't get money unless they have children. So when they took my child into custody, that gave them fiscal year funding. They got probably between $1 and $2.5 million for him for the 2 years that they had him in custody there, right? Now, they wanted to adopt him out. My papers specifically say termination needs to take place so adoption can happen. Never stated why he needed to be adopted, just that it needs to happen. So if he would have gotten adopted, that department that handled the adoption would have gotten a $10,000 incentive bonus. If you adopt a child out to anyone who is not related to that child, that is an incentive bonus. And the department can get a hold of that. The judge can even get a piece of that. And it's
Who's paying these
nationwide.
incentive bonuses? So Nicole, who's paying these incentive bonuses?
The incentive bonuses come from the same place as fiscal year funding, and all of that comes from our Social Security. They got over $60 billion just in 2021 from our Social Security, mine and yours.
Who
that
did?
We've worked for.
Who did?
CPS,
Who received that money? Okay.
Any DCS, CPS organization that's,
Okay.
child and family services. That's where they get it from.
Okay. So we got a comment.
Go ahead.
So we got a comment from Will Yard that says, my stepdaughter is fighting for her grandson in California, but has not been given the chance to have them. The caseworker has decided that they were to be adopted by the gay couple that have them. So again, I'm not saying, that gay, I'm not making a comment about the gay thing. I'm just saying
I completely
that,
understand this comment more than you know. I have a younger son, the one I was pregnant with. Well, whenever my rights were terminated, me and Joshua's father, we separated, but I still took Joseph to go see his father. And I got pulled over in Tennessee, and I got locked up for nothing. The charges got thrown out the next day. The person who was babysitting my child called CPS and told them I abandoned my child. I really believe I was set up, honestly, to lose that child. And so he was adopted by a same-sex family. And he is currently 14 years old and raising all kinds of HEL double hockey sticks because he wants out. You're raised by your parents, you're raised by, a man and a woman, and then you go to a woman and a woman or a man and a man. It's a hard adjustment. And people don't understand that. It is, there's a bond there between you and your parents that's never going to die,
Yeah.
and you can't just whisk one up out of nowhere. So I completely understand this comment. It's just, it's very hard on the kids. And I'll tell you this, the kids, when they age out, they can actually sue as well. I know that doesn't help the situation, but it helps a little. But the kids can sue because that's a violation of their Fourth Amendment right. I'm paraphrasing, but I do believe it's, you can't be seized from your home unlawfully or unwillingly, something like that. But knowing your rights will really help you in this.
Okay. So let's talk about that. So you've been in this journey, and it's just insane. They tell you to lie under oath. They tell you, 4 months. So were they able in front of the judge to get you, because you hadn't seen your child in 4 months, to be able to get you for abandonment? Did that happen?
So what they did was they listed all this other stuff. Inadequate home. You've never even sent anybody to interview my home or see my home. Non-payment of child support. We paid child support and they wanted us to pay $500 on top of what the state was taking out of our paychecks, and we refused. There was something else that was a non-payment of, and then I can't remember, and then failure to visit. So when it went through, the failure to visit, they terminated my rights, and when we appealed it, they got rid of everything else and just did the failure to visit. And I'm just like, how can you take someone's child from somebody that you literally hindered from seeing their child? I just like, and sleep at night and sleep at night and kiss your babies on their face. And I don't get it. It is insane. It is insane. But that's why I try to get on and talk. I didn't get on much today and talk because I was a little nervous about this. So I was just trying to get myself prepared. But I try to get on every day, and I look for videos. I look for those hashtags, CPS corruption, DCS corruption, and I look for stories. And I reach out to people, and I'll tell them, hey, there's a great group on Facebook, and it's called Family Forward Project. It is not my group. I have a group as well that I just started recently, but this Family Forward Project is ran by other people, and I think they got like 20,000 followers in there now. But you can go in there and tell whatever you want to tell about your situation, and you will get all kinds of help, advice, resources, prayers, just all kinds of support from that community. But me personally, like I have on my Linktree, and it's available on all my platforms, I have stuff in there that you can go in and research, like your rights and paperwork that you would need to represent yourself if you took them to court and things of that nature. So I'm trying to provide more information, but I tell people, just email me. It's on my Linktree, and tell me what you need me to know, and I'll help you. I'll guide you through it. And I just want to help others learn how to fight this, because it is unique. It's very unique.
Yeah. So Nicole, a little over a year ago, you had somebody you don't want to divulge who it is, reach out to you, and they gave you some help as to who to contact and how to do it, what to include. And
Yes.
so your son is now how old?
He just turned 16 on April 6th.
Okay, so he's been away from you for over 14 years at this
Yes,
point,
ma'am.
because he was
Yes, ma'am.
about 13 months. So he's almost 14, almost 15 years. So
Mhm.
all of a sudden, you have somebody who reaches out to you, sees you, I guess, online, reaches out to you, gives
Yeah.
you advice, and says, this is what you need to do. This person's well qualified. And so
Yes.
saw your story, reached out to you, and you did exactly as they had told you to do. So they told you who to contact, who to send
Mhm.
everything to, what to send, how to do it. You did it. And what
Mhm.
is going on with your case now?
So I was reached out to, and this person runs the Family Forward Project group. So that's how you know you're in good hands. But they reached out to me and said, I saw your video on YouTube. And they explained to me that they know Tennessee very well and things of that nature. And she told me, you need to write your state legislators. And I'm going to say this while we're live so others can hear and know. You need to write your state senator, your state governor, your state representative, your juvenile court judge, family court judge, CPS, DCS, whatever they call themselves, the regional office in your state. Okay. And then the DCS CPS commissioner of your state and the DCS CPS commissioner. Did I say commissioner already? Chairman and commissioner. You need to write them, the chairman of CPS and commissioner of CPS, all in your state. Now, if you have really good evidence of some fire corruption going on, I would also recommend writing your local FBI office as well. And you want to put all those addresses on a cover sheet. That way, everybody knows who has a copy. That helps hold everybody accountable as well, especially if you've got Federal Bureau of Investigations on the bottom there. That's letting them know, hey, we're not playing no games no more. We want something done. We want this rectified. So
Okay.
you would.
So how long ago was it that you sent that to all of those entities?
That was in, let's see, the end of September. The end of
Okay.
September. And
All
at
right,
the
so now
end
we're at
of the
April.
document, I told them within 2 weeks, I need to hear from you. 2 weeks of the date of this letter. So I gave them a time frame. And within 2 weeks, I was getting emails. So
Okay. And so where is your case now with everything? What has
so
happened?
my case, it is in Jefferson County, Tennessee. And right now there is an ICPC process. This ICPC process is an interstate transfer case. This is getting the child transferred to another state. But what has to happen is I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. So Tennessee sent Utah a request and said, hey, will you investigate this family and see if they can become a kinship foster? So that's what they did. They agreed to it. State legislators here were already aware of my story because when I sent it out to Tennessee, I sent it to these guys too at the same time. And they took my story and they guided me through. But I will tell you this. The entire time, Joshua and I are both asking to speak to one another because he was in a facility and I couldn't talk to him. And we started this in October. I didn't get to talk to him until February. It took him that long to decide whether or not they were going to let us talk. And his therapist was like, we could have been doing family therapy. We could have been doing all kinds of work with you involved, over these past 5 months. It's just, they are not for the family unit. His therapist is a great therapist. She's very supportive. She says, unfortunately, in her 8 years of being with the state, that she's only seen a couple of cases where they were for the family unit. It's very, very rare. But she makes sure that we have a weekly visit. We used to visit on Thursdays, but now we visit on Wednesdays. So tomorrow I'll get to see him on Zoom. I get to see him on video on Zoom, and he gets to call my mother. He gets to call a couple other people too that he's close to, but we get to have communication. I send him care packages. He can get mail, he can get snacks and things like that. So we send him that. And now I have my kinship foster license. My birthday was on April 20th, and that was a birthday gift. It was licensed on April 20th. So I thought that was pretty neat. So now I'm licensed to get him, and they are sending all of that to Tennessee, and it should be a matter of weeks before he's home. I'm thinking Mother's Day. By Mother's Day, he'll be here.
Yeah. So it's all done. Everything's been passed. You're going to get your son back. And so you're talking about let's see, so September, so October, November, December. So within 6 to 7 months now, since hearing from this person that reached out to you and you getting right to business and getting all that sent out, it's all done. And now you're going to have your child back.
Yes. That person who helped me, they wanted me to demand I just get my child back. They really didn't like the idea that I was going to go with the ICPC, but I was like, listen, Utah's on my side. Utah knows that this needs to be rectified, and Utah won't screw me. And they haven't. Utah, I do know there is corruption in Utah, but this specific team, whoever they are, they've been like a godsend. I've really felt like God placed them in my path for this. Some of these ladies that I've met, and they understand. I've told them, hey, if I react with like, and you don't know, I have trauma. I have DCS trauma, and I am still learning how to navigate that trauma response. And they're just very, very cooperative with me on that.
Yeah.
So
good. Well, yeah, because I can't imagine. So, so you've got that, and so he's going to be home. You're both are getting counseling. And so one of the things that you said to me earlier when I said, well, you know, I want to talk about, you know, you said in your TikTok video that you want to help other people, that people can reach out to you. You even actively search hashtags trying to help other people find people who need you. And so, you know, I thought that was great. But one of the things that I said was, well, what are some of the things that you know, you suggest that people do? Like, what are 3 things? But one of the things you talked about was, again, going back to the Facebook group, the Family Forward Project. No matter what state they live in, somebody can join that and get help. And so that was one thing you highly recommended. I thought one of the things that you said was amazing and very insightful that I don't really hear much of. And that is when you said it's easier said than done to get an attorney. And that you decided to get to work now that you knew what to do. You got to work instead of crying and being at home overwhelmed with where to even begin and what to do, because you don't know what you don't know. And so by the grace of God, you had this person reach out to you, and that's, you know, you got to work. And so, so if people, and one of the other things that you mentioned was that people need to look up the policies and procedures for their state, to Google that, to search online. And get familiar with that. So it was very interesting because it's very obvious that you've gotten very familiar with these kinds of things. So you said earlier that you have your own group. So what is the name of your group that you have?
It is CPS Corruption and Recovery. I have it on my Linktree. It's available. I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. CPS Corruption and Recovery. Learn how to recover from CPS. And the reason why it's called recovery is because when my rights were taken, when I lost him and then his brother later, I did not want to live anymore. I didn't. I felt like there's this monster that's after me, and it's got my children, and you know, it just was terrible. So I understand when people say, I lost my kids and I started drinking, or I lost my kids and I got addicted to gambling. I understand that because I've been through it, but I know how to get out of it now, and I know how to help people through it. I'm a recovery now, and I've got 5 years under my belt of complete relapse-free sobriety. So I also help with that because it seems to be everywhere these days, you know.
Well,
and the kids that grow up out of these.
I was going to say, so the other thing too, Nicole, is I'm sure you have PTSD, so you can help with that as well, because you don't, you know, people just don't know what they don't know. No judgment here by any means, in any way, shape, or form.
Appreciate that.
And so I love it that you say, you know, it's and recovery.
Yes.
Because if you haven't been through it, I think it's
Yeah.
good. It's just best to be quiet. And so, especially in something like this, what I said at the very beginning was, I can't imagine one night away from my children,
Mm.
much less, the years that you have endured. So, no. And so, okay. So I love that. Okay. Your link tree. How does somebody go to your link tree?
So my link tree, it's located, excuse me. My link tree is simply Linktree. And if you know Linktree, it's linktr.ee.
TR. Yeah.
Yeah, tr.ee.
.com.
And it's Nicole.Umberger.
So it's
Nicole.Umberger.
Nicole.Umberger. Okay.
Yep.
So producer Ron, when you put that on the screen, it'll be the link tr.ee.com/Nicole Umberger. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So we'll have that up for everybody as well. And knowing producer Ron, he'll be working on getting that in the description of the Rumble channel too. So it'll all be for you, because if we put it in the description, then we can put it as a link and somebody can just click on it. It becomes a hyperlink. In comments, it doesn't hyperlink it.
Awesome.
Okay. So it was interesting. I just want to share this while I've got you on the phone. I was talking, or on the show, I was talking on the phone this morning, and it was very interesting because I had somebody, I'm not going to say who it is because people would know who this person is, somebody share about having a family member who said that they notice from time to time that there are students that they've had, and this family member is a teacher, that they've had students from time to time where the parent gets deported. Okay. So illegal alien, whatever reason, from another country, parent gets deported. The child ends up at CPS. And I said, well, that's odd, because why wouldn't the child have gotten deported with the parents or the parent? Like, that doesn't, I don't understand that. And she said, exactly. She says, something's up with that as well. So and then I just got off the phone with someone else that we're going to have on Thursday, which is Mike Gill. And we were talking about your case, and we were talking about CPS and about you coming on the show today, and where is CPS and all of this, and the child trafficking and how it's done. So we're actually going to focus on some of that aspect on Thursday when he's here. He's a whistleblower, a big time whistleblower. And so anyways, but he was explaining some things about how many people, even the bailiff, gets paid. It's not just the attorneys and the judge. It is a whole list of people. In fact, I wrote them down. He said it is the bailiff, I wrote it down. I know I did. Oh, here it is. The judge, 2 attorneys, the bailiff, the clerk of the courts, and the sheriff, even if there was the sheriff involved. So the gentleman who wouldn't come into your home, who knows, he could have been, paid to and all that set up, because
it's just
crazy. Who called it? Yeah.
I really questioned if it was set up or not in the beginning, but then I thought I was just being paranoid. But now I know.
It all makes more sense when when you said that you found out CPS is not part of the government and not nonprofit, then it's kind of like I can't believe I can't think of them. The drug stuff. I can't remember. But anyways, we're always thinking that everything is a government entity, and instead it ends up where we've been learning there are a lot of places that we thought were part of the government that actually are for-profit organizations that are completely corrupt and not working in our best interest. So Kathy 7734 says, do you foresee filing a lawsuit against CPS, the judge, and others who were complicit in stealing your child? I don't really think they were complicit. I think they were active parties. But do you?
Yeah, we are going to go forward with a federal litigation. I want to give my son a year to recover. I know it will take much longer than that, but a year to get started. And then he has stated that he wants to also go forward with a litigation for a violation of his Fourth Amendment right and many other things. He's really been through a lot of mental anguish. And I mean, he's got siblings that have been through anguish because he was separated from them. And it's just my mom's still in therapy over this stuff. I wanted to tell you, everything associated with the government is rigged to benefit off of our demise. I recently found out that the entertainment industry continues to put out criminal curious content because we have our private prison systems, the detainee facilities along our border that's very unsecure. So the reason why it's very unsecure is because when these illegals or immigrants come in and they get detained, $40,000 per body is what that facility gets. When the children are taken, they are distributed across to states through Child and Welfare Services. They get fiscal year funding. That could be up to $3 million per child per fiscal year, plus $10,000 for each child they adopt out. We have actual shareholders to these systems. There are shareholders to these systems that make money. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
And so it's stomach turning, it's maddening, it's incredible. And
Yes.
what I'm amazed at is that for so many years, I've never heard a thing about it. Like I said, I think that we're actually misled intentionally to believe that these are entities that are working in our best interests, that they actually have authority to be able to take, to come in to your home or whatever, CPS. I've heard numerous people say, don't let them in your home because you don't have to let them in.
And if you're having children in the hospital, they'll come and take your children while you're in the hospital. They'll take a newborn baby from its mother for no reason. Girl named Brittany Frank, she's been fighting for her baby girl in Tennessee, and her baby girl was simply taken from her because she was a Suboxone patient. It's crazy. She's got the FBI involved in her case. I mean, it's really crazy. Been fighting for this baby girl for years. And the foster parents who want to adopt her are both police officers. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's just so much stuff. There's so many people that, I mean, you don't know until you know, like you say, but there's so many people that unfortunately are going through this. And Tennessee's been really bad for it. I've heard a lot of reports out of Tennessee.
So Nicole,
Texas.
as a side note, well, okay, so are you surprised at, do you have a lot of people that reach out to you? I mean, if you're talking about groups that have 20,000 members.
Yes, yes. Well, mine doesn't, but the Family Forward Project does. Mine's new. I just created it, but it'll get there. But yes, I mean, like I was just mentioning Brittany Frank, I'm talking to a lady, Angie Gertino. Now she's from California, but her story's so sad. Her baby girl grew up and had a baby of her own. And that daughter was killed in a hit and run. And that child is in DCS custody. And she's fighting to get her grandbaby, and they don't want to give him to her. It's madness. Like,
and
that's
see,
the
there's no
demise that
reason.
they're trying to profit off of.
Yes. But see, there's no logical reason why they would not want, that's good, that they would not want that grandmother to have that baby. So that's where it's like we have to look at where the signs are and go, okay, 2 and 2 not equaling 4, or like I like to say, as I smell skunk. And so, something's not adding up.
And if you have an attorney and you're not getting nowhere, I'm telling you, question that attorney, because I've met so many people. We have an attorney. We've been fighting for 3 years over something you don't even have proof of abuse for. What in the world?
Yeah. All right. So we got another comment. Let Freedom Ring 44 says, please tell her that I'm praying for her and her son, and that I am so sorry that she has gone through this with her children, and that I'm praying for her and her family. And so one thing that we want to make sure everybody knows is, like you said, you've been clean for 5 years. You found the Lord while you were in prison. And so you were in jail for a while, and you were able to get clean, and you have found the Lord, and you're in the middle of writing a book. And so we will have to definitely have you back when the book is done and talk about that. But I'm just so excited for you. You're going to have to send me some pictures, and I'll share it here as an update on the show as well.
Yes,
so
I'd love to send you a reunion video, and you can share that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And so, Nicole, we're just really pulling for you. I'm so glad that he's going to be home with you where he belongs in just a matter of weeks. And so, if not days. So I'm so glad, so helpful, so thankful. And so we're going to put your link again at the bottom of the screen so people can see where your link tree is. Those are all the different ways to get in touch with Nicole. And so
there's
Nicole,
a little, there's an envelope. You just tap on that envelope and you can email me.
Okay. So super easy to get in touch with Nicole. Thank you, Nicole, for being on. We appreciate you, and we're praying for you and pulling for you. So, whew, boy, there's a lot of information in there. And like I said, we're going to have Mike Gill on. He is a whistleblower, knows a ton of this kind of stuff. And when he explained some of the stuff that's going on in this country, I just spent 2 hours on the phone with him. It's going to be a big show on Thursday. We're going to break down a couple of different aspects of some things that he told me about. And we're going to do a series of shows talking about some different areas. And this is the first one, is about the children, the guns, and the drugs. And some of the stuff that he said really made a lot of sense. Some of it shocked me. So we're going to have him on Thursday. So mark your calendar. Tomorrow we're going to have Gretchen and Warren on. So we're excited about that as well. All right. We'll see you right here next time on the Michelle Moore Show.
What